Good evening and welcome to the Coon Rapids City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 5th, 2018. If you would please rise and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Griscoviac.
Here.
Councilmember Kicker.
Here.
Councilmember Demmer.
Here.
Councilmember Geisler.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Wells.
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Here. Thank you. First item on our agenda then is to adopt this evening's agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler.
I'll make a motion to adopt a modified agenda, so the agenda with the following changes. So we are going to move agenda item number 4, which is accepting donations of movies in the park, into proclamations and presentations. We are going to drop item number 12, which is introduction of an ordinance on the Mississippi River critical area. And we are going to add a second open mic after the approval of the minutes before the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Johnson to adopt an amended agenda. Does anybody have any discussion on that?
Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
Councilmember Geisler, what did you mean, second open mic?
We're gonna, all of the children who are here visiting us can have an opportunity to do that and not have to wait till the end of the meeting. We get them home on time.
I missed that. Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah,
Given the age, we thought we could modify it a little bit here tonight.
yeah.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the amended agenda is adopted. We are up to proclamations and presentations, and we are moving item number 4 up to that because we have Mr. Latta here. Now I don't see him though?
I thought it was. That's what I was told.
Well, now we're kind of committed to doing it now though, aren't we? All right, so we'll go ahead and, that's all right. All right, so this is to adopt resolution 18-69, accepting a donation for movies in the park. The 2018 Movie in the Park events will be held on July 28th, which is rescheduled for May 25th, and September 15th at Sand Creek Park. This annual free family event welcomes residents to come out and enjoy an evening movie with their neighbors. July 28th will be the rescheduled showing of The Lion King, which was rained out in May, and Paddington 2 will be shown on September 15th. The North Star Lions will again have their wide variety of concessions available for purchase, so we would be looking for a motion to receive the donation then.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Demmer?
move to adopt resolution 18-69 to accept a $3,700 donation from the Community Strength Foundation to help fund the 2 Movie in the Park events for 2018.
Second?
Motion by Demmer, second by Kicker. Any discussion?
Since it's in the
Councilmember Demmer?
proclamations, just publicly thank the North Star Lions for their donation.
Well, community strength.
Sorry, Community Strength.
Yes, North Star Lions, they're going to be
Yep.
cranking out the food,
Sorry.
which actually contribute a lot to community strength.
Yes. Publicly thank the groups involved.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. So now, we are on to, now is where we inserted open mic, right?
No, we did minutes and then
Oh, and open minutes? Minutes next?
minutes and
All
then
right, very good.
mic.
All right, so we are looking at an approval of the minutes from the May 15th, 2018 meeting.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Demmer?
move to approve the minutes of May 15th, 2018.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Geisler. There was one little tiny correction on page 6, and that was, it's really trivial, but it was the memorial service for the law enforcement was held on Wednesday, May 16th at noon, not Tuesday, May 16th at noon.
We'll make that correction.
Thank you. I wouldn't notice except it was my birthday, and I thought, wait a minute, that wasn't a Wednesday. All right. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. So now we will do the first of two open mics this evening. Open mic provides an opportunity for the public to address the city council on subjects that are not part of the regular meeting agenda. The public is invited to express any concerns they may have which are relevant to the affairs, policies, or practices of the city of Coon Rapids. Remarks will be limited to 3 minutes. Should you wish to participate in open mic, please approach the podium and state your name and address before addressing the council. All remarks will be made from the podium and addressed to the council as a whole. Open mic is not a time for problem solving or reacting to the comments made, but for hearing the speaker for informational purposes only. Questions from council will be for clarification only, and if necessary, a staff report will be prepared for the next regular council meeting with a copy forwarded to the speaker, or the speaker's parents, I guess, I don't know. So whoever would like to start, that'd be great.
I'm gonna set my timer because I tend to go over sometimes. But I thank you for letting me talk. My name is Laura Carmichael, and I live on 122nd and Gross. And for the past several years, I've been trying to advocate for the safety of our neighborhood and for the safety of these children. I have had a sign put up in our saying slow for children, it didn't do any good. And with the Hanson project now in effect, I've come to both meetings and I've been heard, and I actually was hopeful that I was actually being heard because I was told, we care about your children, we care about your neighborhood, and we will do something. I was told recently, and I'm not gonna throw anyone under the bus, that I was just being fed lip service, and that if I was told that anything was gonna be done for the safety of these kids or for the safety of our neighbors, that was not the case. And I am very upset because I've almost been hit numerous times. Every single one of my neighbors has been almost hit numerous times, as have all of these children that are standing behind you. These children only represent 3 households in our neighborhood. We have disabled adults, we have disabled children also across the street from us. So we started a petition, my neighbors started a petition, we went around and had everybody sign it. But it didn't encompass the whole neighborhood, the surrounding areas, just the areas that are affected, because our curve is where they come in so fast and where the danger is. So no, we're never gonna get the whole neighborhood to agree on this, because it's not their children that are affected, it's not their grandchildren that are affected, it's ours. So I would like you to look at their faces and understand that they are in danger, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when something happens. And in that case, we will be standing in front of you again, only this time I think the city will wish, and the county will wish, that they had come to a different conclusion. And with that, I thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Laura. Is anybody else here to talk to council?
Hi, my name is Derek Dixon. I live at 122 Ken Grove Street. I wrote the letter back in the fall when I heard about the reconstruction of CASA 78. And I had a good feeling about it. Got some feedback, people called me, wanted some input, but it really just ended there. As of right now, there's a median that goes in and out of that access. Otherwise, no other change has been made. And I guess a question I want to pose to the council is, does the city of Coon Rapids prioritize inconvenience over safety? Because it is 45 seconds to drive past our access onto Ibis to get into our neighborhood. 45 seconds to make children like these safer, to make sure they can ride their bikes at night, in the street. That's not safe, So, my thing is, we're not unreasonable people. We just want a safer street to live on. Our street is an anomaly. It's not a 90-degree access. It kind of goes in and you're running parallel to Hanson, probably about 50 feet onto the street. So there's been no conversation about, hey, maybe we can't close the access, but we can put striping down, or there's tons of other solutions, but no one has ever approached us. We've gotten reasons why, and it's because of the other part of the neighborhood, because we don't want to inconvenience them and cost them time, which is unacceptable for me. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
concerned because when we are backing out of our driveway, cars are going around the corner so fast that we can't even see when they're turning. We've almost gotten hit numerous times, and it's even scarier for me to think about doing behind the wheel this summer when my parents have almost gotten hit numerous times pulling out of our driveway. I'm not even allowed to ride my bike around the neighborhood, not because my parents don't trust me, but because they feel that if I do, then I could get hit. I'm almost 15 years old and I can't even ride my bike. All of these people, and more, are risking our lives every day to benefit the lives of a few neighbors down the road, who, let me remind you, are the ones who are speeding around the corner. My parents have told me that all of you are the ones who can make a change. That is why I'm standing in front of you today, on my own free will, on behalf of all the children being affected by this, begging you to make a change. All I'm wondering is why. Why do we have to be scared to even go and get the mail out of our mailboxes because we are too afraid that we are going to get hit? Why do we have to jeopardize our lives daily so that our neighbors can speak? And finally, why can't you help us? Why can't you do simple tasks to ensure that my life is no longer in danger? Is my life not important to you? Are our lives not important to you? Thank you.
Good job, Braylen. Have you ever thought of running for public office?
Tom Kamarath, 12215 Grouse Street. Sorry. I also wrote something. I'm the first house that you come to around the corner, so I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time to listen.
Just
I'm here.
just a point of clarification, when you come around to the left, is that where you're at?
Yep,
Okay.
the first house on the block there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I'm here because, we need something from you guys, and that's, trying to close the street down or make some modifications or talk to at least somebody to get something going here. I'm asking the city to do what's right, and that's keep us safe. Why wait for something bad to happen to make any changes? If you guys are in our shoes, what would you guys do? And then we are all here to get it closed. I don't see anybody from our neighborhood here fighting to keep the street or the entrance open as much as we are fighting to get it closed. And then the last thing I wanted to just say, I invite all you guys, each and every one of you guys, to come down, take a visit, maybe have a few beers with me, stand and watch how traffic comes in and see. When we were growing up, we were able to ride our bikes and not worry about the traffic. Traffic is not the same anymore. So now I have to be out there watching them as they ride their bike on my own yard on the grass. It's not the same anymore. You can't ride on the street because of the traffic coming in. So now I have to take them to a designated area to ride. That's not right. But if nothing happens, I hold you guys accountable if one of them gets injured or something happens. So please just do what's right. And if we need to rediscuss this, I welcome any discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask just a question as a point of clarification?
Councilmember Johnson?
And anybody can answer it, sir, if you want to step back up and maybe be helpful. Are there particular times of the day where you notice it more?
Well, it's, after work.
Mm-hmm.
It's mainly, now I can't even mow the grass. That's how bad it is. So if the city expects me to mow the boulevard and, while we have drivers that are texting and hop the curb once, and you could see the tread marks and all those still embedded in the grass and stuff. It's crazy. I can't mow the lawn because due to traffic constraints. I don't need to go up there wearing a yellow vest just to mow my lawn to keep something up.
Is it more prominent during the rush hour times, though?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, please.
It's all the time. In fact, at the last open house, I was at a table with a map, and there was someone that lives in the apartments on 121st and Hanson there, on the north side.
Yep.
And they said sometimes they can't get out, so what they do is they come up Ibis and come out our street. So we're not even getting traffic just from our neighborhood.
Gotcha.
It's become a cut through.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Hello, I'm sorry I'm late, and so
Okay,
am I
just
state my
give-
name and address?
Yes, please.
Carolyn Dixon, I live at 12220 Grouse Street, Northwest. Lived there for 18 years, and the traffic has just gotten heavier down our street. And invariably, if we're not out there, or if I may be in the other part of the yard where people can't see, we have at least, I can say honestly, at least 4 times in the afternoon when people drive in, turn around in my driveway or my son's driveway, and because he lives next door, and turn around because they've made a wrong turn and decided that they're not where they want to be. So that's one of the problems with that, is that there is a lot of traffic that shouldn't even be on our street. The other thing is that the traffic speed, I mean, I know you can't put in speed bumps because of the snow drivers, but it's ridiculous how fast people come down from the end of our street, and we're right there, and that's where it's dangerous. I mean, we have several children that live, like Tom said, at the very end. There is no way they could play in the street. I actually cut down a tree so that I could see the traffic better, so I would, because of the hazards of people coming up so quickly. It's still dangerous, because by the time I get out in the street, there'll be somebody right there. And I just think that this is too short of a street to have all this traffic on it. And especially when there's other outlets that they could take. They can turn several different ways down at the end of the block. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, I'm Noelle Epp. I live at 12235 Grove Street, and I wasn't going to talk tonight, but I'll make it brief. We actually just sold our home, and there's a new family moving in with 3 or 4 kids. So I'm actually representing them tonight because I really do care about the safety of our neighborhood. I would say from having lived there about 11 years, 10 or 11 years, it really has changed a lot because of the increased traffic on Hanson, especially going north towards Andover, which is actually where we're moving to shortly. But the rush hour traffic has just really increased. When people kind of turn in our street, they're just kind of zooming off of Hanson and kind of running down our street as if, there's not kids there. And honestly, I don't let my kids play in the street. I don't let them bike in the street. So it's not that we're all like letting our kids play and bike in the street. It's that it's even, like they said, going to the mailbox, just being in an area where there's just so much unhindered car traffic. And even if, the decision is not to close the street, we would just love to see some other options, speed bumps, some kind of a light, some kind of a, an engineering solution so that people cannot just come zooming off of Hanson onto the street laden with kids and people with disabilities. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else to address council during open mic? Okay, we'll have another shot later. Thank you very much. So with that, then we will close open mic. And we will move to our consent agenda. The first item on our consent agenda is item number 2 this evening. Approve a waiver of fees for the 4th of July celebration. The Coon Rapids Fire Relief Association and the Coon Rapids North Star Alliance have submitted a request to waive the fireworks display, carnival, and 5K, 10K run walk and parade fees for the annual 4th of July celebration. Historically, these have been waived for this community event. So with this action, we will be approving the waiver of the fireworks display, carnival, 5K, 10K run walk, and parade license fees for the 2018 4th of July celebration. Second item on our consent agenda, which is item 3 this evening, is to approve the temporary on-sale strong beer and wine liquor license for 4th of July community celebration to Coon Rapids North Star Alliance. Stephen Wells, on behalf of Coon Rapids North Star Alliance, has applied for a temporary on-sale strong beer and wine liquor license to be used at the 4th of July community celebration to be located at the Coon Rapids Ice Center, 11,000 Crooked Lake Boulevard on July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2018. The appropriate fees have been paid. The certificate of insurance for liquor liability is on file. The background investigation is being completed by the police department. The temporary on-sale strong beer and wine liquor license will be valid from 9 a.m. to midnight from July 2nd through July 4th, 2018. So with this action, we would be approving the temporary strong beer and wine liquor license for Coon Rapids North Star Lions for use at the 4th of July community celebration from July 2nd through July 4th, 2018, contingent upon a successful background investigation.
Shouldn't we wait until that background check, please?
And then item 4, the next time we've already moved up to proclamations, so now we are doing the last item on the consent agenda, which is item 5 this evening. In planning case 17-12, approve the site plan approval extension for Riverdale Station Apartments. Site plan approval is valid for 1 year, and the applicant is requesting a 1-year extension to that approval. The extension is needed to allow the applicant additional time to arrange financing. The proposal has not changed and remains in conformance with the land use plan and city code standards. At the May 17th meeting, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the site plan approval extension. So we will be, in planning case 17-12, we will be approving a 1-year extension to June 15th, 2019 of the site plan approval with the original conditions.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Johnson?
I'd move approval of items 2, 3, and 5 on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Wells. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the consent agenda is approved or adopted. The last item was number 5. I almost said all opposed say 5. It's like, what?
We could have.
All right, next, we don't have any public hearings, bid openings. We have one item under old business. Item 6, to consider adoption of ordinance 2206, authorizing conveyance of Lot A, Minnesota Park 3rd Edition. With the reconstruction of 101st Avenue last year, it was determined that remnant property existed of sufficient size that a buildable lot could be created. On March 6, 2018, final plat approval was granted by Resolution 18-39 for Minnesota Park 3rd Edition, creating a buildable lot on the corner of 101st Avenue and Cottonwood Street, and Outlot A. City staff is proposing to sell Outlot A, an unbuildable lot, to the adjacent property owner to be combined with their parcel. Per planning case 18-2, the adjacent homeowner has executed a purchase agreement prepared by the city for land legally described as Outlot A, Minnesota Park 3rd Edition, Anoka County, Minnesota. The city's charter requires all real property of the city to be disposed of by ordinance. Yeah, so there we are. We're up to the. Would somebody like to move it? Councilmember Griscoviac.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2206, authorizing the conveyance of real property to Sherry K. Lixton for Outlot A, Minnesota Park 3rd Edition.
Second.
Motion by Griscoviac, second by Kicker. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 7 is to, in planning case 18-8, consider amendment to Village 10 Final Planned Unit Development 2022 to 2170 Northdale Boulevard, Wilkus Architects. And Mr. Harlicker has a presentation for
Yes,
us.
good evening, Mayor and council members.
While he's loading this up, Braylee, do you like Chipotle? You're gonna like this one then. Go ahead, Mr. Harlicker.
Thank you for the introduction there. Yes, as the mayor stated, this is a request by Chipotle and the owner of the center to amend the planned unit development to include several modifications to the planned unit development. Those modifications include adding a second monument sign along Northdale Boulevard, adding a panel to the existing monument sign down on 115th and Hanson, adding an outdoor seating patio in front of the restaurant, and modifying the existing building elevation. The first item is the additional monument sign on Northdale Boulevard. There's currently a monument sign located at the main entrance coming into the shopping center where the signal is there on Northdale. That sign's about 19 feet from Northdale Boulevard. There's 40 square feet of signage and is 16 feet high. About 250 feet south or east on Northdale, right in this area here, the applicant is proposing a second smaller monument sign. That sign is proposed to be 19 feet setback from Northdale Boulevard. It'll be 12 feet high, 10 feet wide, and we'll have two sign panels in the sign, which is this sign here. The second modification is the monument sign down here on Hanson and 115th. They're adding a panel to that. It's currently 11 feet 9 inches high, 8 feet wide. They're adding a panel that'll increase the height to 14 feet 6 inches. That'll allow Chipotle to be on that sign also. The next two modifications are related to the site plan and the area that Chipotle is proposing to occupy. They're looking at occupying this end space here closest to Northdale Boulevard. AAA is currently in that space. They're moving down to the east end of the building, so they'll still be in what the applicant called Building B. The outdoor seating area will be right here in front. That modification will involve enlarging that little peninsula there and removing one parking space. Here's a more close-up view of the patio area. They're proposing 16 seats out there with a rail fence around the perimeter of it. It's right outside the main entrance to Chipotle, the restaurant. So people coming out of the restaurant would get their food, walk across the sidewalk, and then into the seating area if they chose to eat outside. There is sufficient parking in the parking lot here to accommodate the additional parking that this outdoor seating area may generate. And the final amendment involves the exterior of the building. What they're proposing is a modification to what's there, kind of an upgrade of it to a better fit Chipotle's current standards. The white area around the top here will be a white ephes. They'll have a indented area here on the side facing Northdale Boulevard to provide some relief to that side. The storefront will wrap around the building from the outside here facing the parking lot, and then down this side here facing Northdale. Main entrance here with a secondary access here. The area around the front here will be a mix of a dark ephes and then painting the canopy to coincide with the proposed modifications to the building. And here's a more close-up view of the proposed exterior elevations. The Planning Commission reviewed this at their May 17th meeting. No one spoke at the public hearing, and the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the proposed amendment to the PUD. There was one condition that 200 square feet around the new sign on Northdale be landscaped with shrubs and perennials.
Mr. Heliker, they're adding that big canopy off the front of the building, but the outdoor patio area won't be under it. It'll be out onto that, like on that median there?
Correct. I don't know if they're enlarging the patio or not, or the canopy, or are they just modifying the existing? I'm looking to the applicant for direction on this.
I thought you were looking at somebody. I thought you were looking at Braley.
I don't believe there are.
The canopy is existing, we're just going to paint it to match the new.
There's your answer.
Oh, it's already there?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize
There's
that.
a canopy that runs across the front of that whole building.
Oh, okay. On your illustration, it looked like it was just in front of Chipotle there.
That's just the part that they're modifying,
Okay,
painting.
thank you. All right. Questions of Mr. Harlicker? Councilmember Kraskowiak?
Do you know if the outdoor patio seating area is gonna be, is that gonna be raised on a curb type thing like it has right now? Is that gonna be extended and to cover the entire seating area?
Yeah, it'll be raised above the surrounding pavement, so it'll be sitting up above the curb.
So we got a curb and then we got some type of gating
Yep.
around us. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kicker?
In Planning Commission, or Planning Case 18-8, I make a motion that the council approve the proposed modifications to the Village 10 PUD with the following condition, that the 200 square feet around the base of the new sign be landscaped with shrubs and/or perennials.
Second.
Motion by Kicker, second by Geisler. Discussion. Councilmember Demmer?
You know, it probably doesn't matter. I'm just really confused about the signs. So the one up at the entrance off of Northdale is the one that is existing, and it has Cub Foods and Eric's, and then they're gonna add, and there's already something there on the, there's like, there's, what was it? Sorry, I had it a minute ago. But then the new one is actually farther away from the Chipotle building, and that's the one that's gonna say Chipotle and Lifetime on it?
Correct.
Okay. I would have expected it to be up on the other, it just seems like they've got the signs backwards as far as the order of the building, but I guess they can change them to say whatever they want, so.
Councilmember Demmer, I believe they're looking, so people as they're coming north on Northdale or west on Northdale, they'll see the Chipotle sign and be able to get into the appropriate lane, so then they can make the turn into the shopping center at the signalized intersection.
Yeah, I'm not meaning I would correct how they do the signs. I just wanted to make sure I understood, because
Yep.
it seemed backwards to me, but they'll change the signs to say whatever they want, so I just want to make sure I had it right. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kraskowiak?
I had a question too on the signage. It seems to me like the signs here are just a change to the POD, and that the sign scope, for example, is well within our city code. There's no variance to our city code in the signage, is there?
That's correct.
Okay. That's the way I read it. I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries, and we're gonna get a Chipotle there, next to the high school.
Patio too.
Yeah, they're gonna be excited, yeah. All right, Mr. Harlicker, number 8, planning case 18-7, consider site plan, medical office building 116XX Round Lake Boulevard, Wilkus Architects.
Yes, Mayor and council members, the site is highlighted here in black. No, this is Round Lake Boulevard, Coon Rapids Boulevard here. There's an existing office building here, a retail building here. This is the site that the applicant is proposing to put 20,540 square foot office building with 121 parking spaces. Here's the site plan. There's an existing access here off of Round Lake Boulevard that'll be used by this site as well as the other two. And then a new access on the north end of the site off of Round Lake Boulevard that'll service the applicant's property. You see there's parking wrapped around the building. Most of it is on the south side of the building here, with some back here. Out front, there's just the one row of parking, excuse me, facing Round Lake Boulevard. The site is located within the River Rapids overlay, and it does comply with the standards there, with the exception of the Florida area ratio. The front of the building, or the main entrance facing the primary street, which is Round Lake Boulevard, and the fact that they need code requires 60% transparency or windows on the side facing the street. The applicant is requesting flexibility to those three standards, as well as site plan approval. There's an existing sidewalk along Round Lake Boulevard with a sidewalk proposed in this location here to bring people in off the street and into the front of the building with the main entrance here. As you can see, there's also sidewalks around the building to get people to the entrances. There are peninsulas here and here in the parking lot, and as well on this side to kind of break up those long rows of parking. Those landscape islands, peninsulas will have trees on them. This is the grading plan. There's an existing stormwater pond out front. This pond provides stormwater management for all three parcels, all three buildings. So that's stays where it's at. As you can see, everything will grade out this way. This end of the site will not be graded. There's a stand of trees down here, so those trees will remain. There are some existing shrubs along Northdale Boulevard. It's recommended that those shrubs be preserved. We understand there will be some grading along there, but preserve those shrubs wherever possible. Again, here's the landscape plan. You've got the townhouses to the north. You can see there are some existing evergreen trees on the townhouse property. The applicant is proposing another 28 Black Hill spruce along there, as well as some maple trees to break up and provide a buffer between the parking lot here and the townhouses. Again, you've got some trees along the west end here. You've got street trees between the pond and Round Lake Boulevard, as well as some birch trees between the pond and the building. The landscape peninsulas are landscaped, as well as the area around the building. There's a condition, should the council approve the site plan tonight, that landscaping around the base of the building, the foundation of the building, go from here, where there's none, and along this corner here, and then wrap around the east side a little bit. This is serving as the focal point of the building. It'll be evident when we see the building elevations. So it's important that that area be landscaped around the base of the building also. Here is what the building will look like. It's a mix of stone and different colored and different textures of ephes. This is the side that faces the south. This area here is kind of a stone tower that anchors the southeast corner of the building. This is the elevation that faces Round Lake Boulevard. You can see it wraps around here and again wraps around this side here. And then these are the windows and the secondary emergency access here. And this is the side that faces the townhouses. Again, you can see that the architectural treatment and the change in materials is continued around all sides of the building. And then this is the west end that faces the parking lot and the trees down in the west end of the building. Go back here. The dumpster and dumpster enclosure are located in this location here. There's a unique feature to this site, which is when the building to the south was originally approved back in 2004, there was a concept plan for this partial that showed shared parking between the two sites. So when this building was constructed, the actual curb line for the parking extended across the property line at about this location here. Over the years, the property has changed hands. The building was never constructed. The easements that were approved back in 2004 were negated by previous property owners. So when they came into, excuse me, to develop this site, we were met with an existing situation where the bituminous curbing, which was intended to be temporary, actually extended across the property line here. The port code allows for parking to overlap onto adjacent properties, provided there's shared parking or combined parking between the two parcels. Staff is currently working with the applicant on coming up with a parking and access easement that will cover this encroachment area. So that area will be covered per code with the parking and access easement, shared parking and access easement. Here is they also have a building in Otsego off 101, made up of the same type of materials. And this is a photograph of that building, so it'll be similar stone and similar ephes with different textures. So it's kind of a real-life photo of the materials that are being proposed for use on this building.
I was wondering where we got that. I thought that's a pretty impressive architectural drawing.
Yeah. And to give, excuse me, the council and the audience an idea of what it will look like, this is a perspective of what it will look like from the corner of Round Lake Boulevard and Coon Rapids Boulevard. The building is back here. So what you'll see as you're looking to the northwest is the stone tower that really anchors this end of the building. Let me touch on the design flexibility. The first one is the floor to area ratio. 0.6 floor to area ratio is what's required by code. The applicant is proposing a 0.2 ratio. When you get a higher ratio like the 0.6, it's difficult to accommodate on sites unless you do some sort of underground parking. So the granting of design flexibility is warranted because the site cannot accommodate the density required to reach the 0.6, and the 0.2 would allow for development that's more suitable for this parcel. The entry to Round Lake front entrance needs to face Round Lake Boulevard per code. What they're proposing is they have the entrance on the south side of the building here. The code allows that the applicant may substitute a focal feature for the main entrance when it's not feasible for the main entrance to face the primary street. That's why they've moved this tower feature to the southeast corner to provide kind of an anchor and a focal point for that street side of the building. And the third request is for the 60% of transparency on the first floor of the building. Code requires that for office and retail uses on the elevations that face the street. The applicant is proposing 40%. There are some physical street restrictions to the building that really limit where windows can go. In this area here, they've got an indoor utility area with utilities on the wall that limits where windows can go, as well as structural features that limit where windows can go. And the other thing is, relates to the actual use of the building. It's not your typical office building. The applicant does realize that windows are important, but they need to balance that with the need for privacy for patients. And so they are providing windows where they can, and that does come out to 40% versus 60%. So they're requesting design flexibility for that. At the Planning Commission meeting held on the 17th, a resident from the Townhome Association spoke at the meeting. They were concerned about the site's impact primarily on the two townhomes that are directly adjacent to the site. The resident initially said they'd like to see a 15-foot or a wall installed along there to reduce the noise impact and light impact on the townhouse development. As they were also concerned about noise from trash pickup.
What's the
Commission
earliest they
discussed
can-
that, and they felt that the proposed landscaping as well as the additional landscaping that's currently on the townhouse property, provide a sufficient buffer between the parking lot here and the townhomes. We also, the commission recommended in their recommendation that there be a limit as to the height of the lights along this property line. The condition is that the lights can be no higher than 15 feet above grade, and the lights directed in screens so they shine towards the building and away from the townhouses there. And with that, Planning Commission asked that the developer work with a trash hauler on the possibility of doing a later pickup date for trash. They indicated that they're not a high generator of trash, and the trash haulers typically come in maybe once or twice a week to the dumpster enclosure right here. The Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval of the site plan and design flexibility. The site plan approval was included 13 conditions. Staff would recommend that condition number 5, the language be changed from a shared access agreement is executed and approved by the city attorney for form and content to a shared access and parking agreement be executed. And they also recommended approval of the design flexibility for the 3 items with the findings contained in the staff report.
Mr. Harlicker, one of the earliest calls I've ever gotten from a resident was, I think it was somewhere around 6:30 in the morning or 6:15 when a garbage truck had woken them up at an apartment building. What is there's a morning time, they can't come earlier than a certain time, isn't there, to pick up commercially or not? Or was that, in that case, they couldn't because it was an apartment building, but Mr. Brody?
Your Honor, we do have an ordinance, and it says collection of nature within any residential areas or within 750 feet of any residential area will be restricted from 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. So if you're 750 feet from a residential, it should be after 6:30.
Oh, definitely within 750 feet of those townhomes, yeah. Okay, so 6:30, it's time to get up?
According to the good city of Coon Rapids. Or our code.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Harlicker?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
I'll make a couple of comments on, I generally like the building. I think it's a good use for the site. I'm not concerned about the facing, not at Round Lake, because Coon Rapids Boulevard, seeing that can be a focal point and kind of at the corner. I think that also stays in alignment with the actual medical office building that's on the other side of Mercy. That doesn't face the main road of Coon Rapids Boulevard, that faces Blackfoot. So doing that, and then making sure that we've got good parking but not trying to cram everything in. So I'm actually fine with all of the different pieces of the building. I think it'd be a great addition. I can do a motion unless people other have comments.
I like it. I wish we could have gotten closer to that 60% for glass, but I completely understand why they can't. So
Yeah.
I think they've done well making it an attractive building absent that. Sorry.
So
The one that I think is, like, I wish the Round Lake Boulevard side was, didn't have that big solid block and maybe put fake windows up or something, but other than that, that's nitpicking. Everything else looks fine.
The Round Lake, you mean the west side of the building?
The side facing Round Lake Boulevard
The
is
east elevation.
The east elevation.
that one.
Yeah.
So, this is a pretty big block.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And I get you don't want, you can't do the natural light windows, but you could break up that block a little bit and
Yeah,
again, nitpicking, I'm not gonna say no. Everything else is great.
Mr. Mayor, I think with the staff recommendation that moves the landscaping around that corner to highlight that side and that corner, helps address some of that. So, with that,
Councilmember Geisler?
in planning case 18-7, I will make a motion to approve the site plan with design flexibility with the conditions and findings for granting flexibility as stated in the staff report, unless somebody wants. With the exception of item number 5 is going to be a shared access and parking agreement to be executed and approved by city attorney for form and content. Do you want everything read, or is that good enough?
That's sufficient.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Wells. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And that motion carries. All right. Mr. Harlick, are you doing the next one, or who's doing the number 9? Consider resolution 18-70, supporting a tax credit application for a multifamily housing project, 115XX Robinson Drive. Mr. Brown, you doing this one?
Yes, I can give you a quick update, and obviously the council had considered this project at a couple work sessions in both April and May, so I think you're familiar with it now. So Duffy Development proposes a 65-unit mixed-income apartment building on the site next to Wells Fargo on Robinson Drive, currently owned by Shamrock Development. It's about a between 2.5 and 3 acre site. This project is still in a very conceptual phase, which is typically the case when a developer kind of begins the process of lining up financing. So in this case, the council's asked to consider a resolution of support for their tax credit application to Minnesota Housing, as well as the use of TIF for the project. The application deadline is coming up next week. If the developer is awarded the tax credits, they would learn of that in the fall. The next step would be then that they will go through the land use approval process and also the process of setting up a TIF district probably in early 2019. We did take a look at the need for gap financing assistance for the project, determined that over a 26-year period of time, the project would generate about $800,000 in tax increment, which would be sufficient to fill that gap. So overall, staff is comfortable with that aspect of it. So for tonight, really, the first step is for you to consider that resolution of support. We have representatives from both Shamrock and Duffy here tonight. If there are any questions, and I can certainly answer questions as well.
Councilmember Demmer.
So one thing I wanted to ask, in the resolution, the be it resolved, number 1 says we'd support tax credits, fine. Number 2 says we support tax increment financing, but then it also says at the sole discretion of the city council. And then the third one just sort of lists where it's at roughly. So making sure I understand what we're voting for here. It sounds like we're voting to say we support TIF, we're not committing to it. We would estimate it's in this range, but again, not committing to it. And so this seems a little bit like we're making sure they can apply for the tax credit, but we are not promising for sure that we would do TIF, and we're not promising for sure it would be this amount or this duration. Is there, that's the right read?
That is correct, Councilmember Demmer. Basically, Minnesota Housing wants some indication when developers are making these applications that a project generally has support in the community. And if there is a need for gap financing, that the community generally supports that. So yes, it's correct that this resolution is really non-binding. Obviously, it will be several months from now before you would consider planning approvals, before you consider the TIF approval. So that's not really, like you said, committing the council to approving all those things at a later date. This is really just a gauge of support at this time.
I mean, I appreciate that because we had a few discussions about whether it made sense at all, and so we didn't really get a chance to say, and how much would we want to add. It's always hard to take something off the tax rolls for that long. So then you start to get to discussion of then what additional things do we get, and that negotiation I'd like to see continue if we do approve this. But I just wanted to make sure we weren't tying ourselves into anything well before we probably should.
Mr. Brown, does this currently doesn't fit, or I'll ask the question, does it fit the current zoning for that site? And if not, does that impact whether they consider this for tax credits or not?
It is not directly considered in the application. However, the site is currently zoned general commercial, so it would need to be rezoned to allow for housing. The draft comprehensive plan that we have, the 2040 plan, does guide this area and some of the adjacent areas mixed use, which generally acknowledges that commercial development is okay, but in some cases, some sites may not be the most viable for commercial, so residential is probably okay too. So that new plan would be more supportive of residential at this location, but either way, it would need to be rezoned.
So Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler?
I look at this as an opportunity for us to go, no, absolutely no way, or let's further our discussions, right? There's nothing that is saying that absolutely that this is going to happen, that there's going to be a rezoning, that there's going to be TIF, there's going to be this amount. What it allows us to do is to have the developer move forward and us continue to have discussions to look to see, can we get something that is the right thing for the city? If we say no to this tonight, we're shutting off every conversation. And for me, I'm not willing to shut down conversations for something that could be very good for the city. Is it perfect? Is it right? I don't know, because we don't know enough about it yet. And so for me, I will be supporting this because I think it's important to continue the conversation. And allowing them to go forward with their application allows us to continue the conversations.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Johnson?
So just so the public is aware, and some of this is in the packet and in the agenda, but this is a rather unusual piece of property. It's kind of like a flag lot that was and is zoned commercial, but because it's a flag lot, it has kind of a short and narrow access off of Robinson Drive, and then the larger part of the property is kind of buried further back in. So it's not the most ideal piece of commercial property, which makes it still vacant. And so I think this is a reasonable proposed use, and so I'm going to be supporting it going forward.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Wells?
I have a very opposite opinion. I can't see, it needs an affirmative vote to move forward. The project is going to substantially change. It's an apartment complex. I don't think it fits that piece of property. I've talked to neighbors, and they were ready to get a petition and show up here tonight, and I told them that certainly wasn't necessary. But by moving this forward, that's the kind of things that, we'll deal with, as people have the right to do. But I just don't feel, I'm not comfortable with the project, so for me to move it on with taking an affirmative action of offering TIF and saying that I'll change the zoning down the line, I don't see any reason why to get the developer moving in that direction when I don't see me changing my mind.
Councilmember Demmer?
Yeah, I think that, so the developer showed up, the developer asked this to be on the agenda after hearing the, I would say, lukewarm response from the other meetings. If they had pulled the plug, but if they're gonna put it on and want to explore it at risk, I'm willing to vote yes to let them keep exploring it at risk after hearing the lukewarmness. If it was a full commitment, I would vote no at this point, but I'm on the fence enough, as seeing both pros and cons on this, that if they're willing to keep going at risk, then they know what risk they're undertaking, and I'm willing to keep it going. But I also understand there's people who very much believe this is the wrong fit, and I respect that, and I think that normally I would like to say, if it's not the right thing, let's just get it done with, but the developers sort of heard that lukewarmness and still wanted us to keep having the conversation open. So I'll respect that conversation because they're willing to take that risk, but know that I think they all realize it could go nowhere. So that's sort of I'm not convinced that I would vote for it yet, but I'm willing to listen some more.
Anyone else?
Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
I'll just pipe in by saying that I too am not on board right now with changing the zoning on this project. So that said, if the developer wants to get our approval on this, just to go forward on that, there's going to be a time where this is going to come back in front of us. There's going to be a time where the community gets to pipe in too. I just don't want the developer to think that this is a green light. I guess that's my main thing, if we do vote this way.
Okay. All right.
See if it was Bill's turn.
Oh, well, no, it's still his choice. So I don't think this is a good fit. I guess I don't know what else I need to know about it. I mean, we know what the unit is, we know how many units they're proposing, and I know that I've not had anybody come to me and say, please build another apartment building, and particularly next to owner-owned townhomes on the full south side of it. And then arguably the two single-family homes aren't a great fit that are alongside of it, but you already have then single ownership homes around it. I don't think it's a good fit. I don't see any reason to keep the conversation going when I'm still not gonna think it's a good fit. So that's where I'm at.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
I would like to make a motion to recommend the consideration of Resolution 18-70, supporting the tax credit application for a multifamily housing project proposed by Duffy Development.
Second.
A motion by Geisler and a second by Johnson. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Aye. So, you want to call the roll maybe, or did you catch that?
I think it's 4-3.
Well,
But we'll do a roll. Griscoviac?
No.
Kicker?
No.
Demmer?
Aye.
Cook?
No?
Geisler?
aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Wells?
No.
Okay, the motion fails 4-3. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
I would like to just thank Duffy Development for, their interest in our city, and hope that we can find other places that we could potentially have conversations. Apparently this is not the right site, but from what I saw from the building, it was an interesting building, and, I don't want it to be something that we totally close the door to any sort of conversations potentially elsewhere in the community.
No, clearly, and that's not any kind of a thing on that. Duffy they're a great owner. They've got a building here now. They have tremendous products. We've looked at them all around town. They're a great developer. That's just not the issue at all. For me, it was just not the right location. Okay. I feel really bad because it's Jerry Thiessen's birthday today. I feel really bad about this.
I'm gonna have to buy him a cake.
All right. Item number, where are we at here? 10. Consider introduction of an ordinance. Wait a minute. I went to the next one. 10, come on, there we go. Consider introduction of an ordinance to amend Chapter 5-1500 to add mobile food units, food trucks. So the ordinance proposes amendments to the city's code to specifically allow and regulate food trucks. The city has been utilizing the transient merchant process to license food trucks, which requires background checks that staff does not believe are necessary for food truck operators. Eliminating the need for background checks will speed up the approval and license issuance timeline and provide greater flexibility for food truck applicants. Once adopted, this change to city code would allow a specific set of regulations and requirements for food truck licensing, including a specific fee structure for food trucks, which would allow for a yearly fee for operating just 21 days. This time frame would match the Anoka County 21-day food license, which is more appropriate for food trucks than the transient merchant fee required under existing regulations. Mr. Stemwedler or Ms. Lensmeyer, anything you want to cover on this?
Mr. Mayor, I think you covered it. I stand for questions if there are any.
All right.
I'm
Council?
excited.
Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoe,
I do
yeah.
have a question on it, I just need to bring it up here, so bear with me 1 second. Okay, so in the, oops, that's the wrong one. I can't get both of them open at the same time.
I'll jump in while you're doing it.
Go ahead.
Councilmember
yes.
Demmer.
So, we had talked, and
Okay, I got it.
just trying to explore the bounds of this about how an ice cream truck could or could not fall into it, and we agreed that an ice cream truck wouldn't fall in. And then I went to Boston, and they had a legitimate food truck with a kitchen to cook cookies to put ice cream in, and I was like, oh man, there's a step between ice cream truck and food truck. So I want to make sure as we think through this, maybe we go out and sort of look at what is out there in the world of food trucks and have internal decisions on what's a food truck and what's not.
Yeah, I think we need to sample several of them.
Yes, and bring those.
Fill the
No,
parking lot.
just a recognition that the food truck world is so incredibly diverse that there's shades of gray between food truck and ice cream truck, and I can't imagine all the other corners that might test this ordinance. So just making sure we're ready to have it tested.
Mayor Cook, Councilmember Demmer, right now what we'll do is the Department of Agriculture issues licenses to food trucks and other what we consider to be non-dangerous foods, and those, we would allow them to just operate with that license.
Sure. So if they're cooking,
That's what we're doing right now.
If they're cooking the cookies and it has eggs, then it's a food truck.
Exactly.
If they're selling the prepackaged chipwich, then it's an ice cream truck.
That would be correct.
Okay.
Did you say non-dangerous food? Is that what you described that as? I would hope we have a higher bar than that.
Foodborne illness is a thing. Anything that is typically considered to be
Needing to be cooked.
correct or kept at a proper temperature.
All right.
Excellent.
Councilmember Griscoviac, did you
I
figure
was
out how to
really
get two things
filibustering
open at
for
one
you.
time?
Thank you, thanks for the time there, appreciate that.
Right.
In the ordinance itself, in section 5.1513, which refers to the locations. So in here it says that the food truck can't be closer than 150 feet from another brick and mortar restaurant. And then it says, with the exception, unless authorized by the property owner. To me, that doesn't tell me which property owner needs to authorize that. Is it the brick and mortar
Or is it-
property
or is it
owner?
required?
Or is it the food truck operator, or is it the location?
And related to that, because I had a similar question,
Councilmember Johnson?
is it the property owner or the proprietor of
Okay.
the thing? So for example, you might have somebody who's a tenant, and they're not the property owner, but they own the restaurant. So maybe a little clarification could be obtained there.
Don't all jump
We
at once.
just talked about this 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Well, I'll take the first crack at it, Mayor and City Council. So the intent is that the adjacent property owner on the the affected site, so if it's 150 feet from a brick and mortar restaurant on another property, they have to be at least 150 feet away, or that property owner could give that food truck an exemption to allow them to be there. The reason we thought that we'd stick with the property owner is that ultimately, we don't necessarily know the relationship between the restaurant in that case and the property owner, And our feeling was that the property owner would be in the best place to go to their client or whomever and say, this food truck is requesting to be, 75 feet instead of 150 feet. Are you okay with that? And if not, then I would think they would say, no, you can't be closer than 150 feet. That's why we stuck with property. I think it was the cleanest that way, but I know there isn't maybe a perfect way to illustrate that. Did I get that close enough?
My favorite, as I was poking around, is the Brooklyn Park model. Brooklyn Park, they don't say you have to be 150 feet or anything like this. They just put the colors on the map. This is where food trucks are allowed, anywhere in these colors here. And then you still have to have the permission of the owner, and they've got all the forms. They have this great process all laid out for food trucks there. How, if you're a food truck, you need to get the permit from the city, you need to get permission from the owner. These are the areas you can be in. It's this great step process. When I looked at our GIS map with those little dots 150 feet around the restaurants, I thought, how are they gonna know, really? It seemed like it'd be nicer if it was bigger, but I guess we've
Mr. Mayor,
already discussed
staff
that.
here will verify that the one before we sign off on the permit, they have to provide a site drawing and property owner permission, and we would ensure that it meets that requirement.
Mayor?
Councilmember
A couple of other
Christofian?
points. This might have to do with the ordinance, or it might have to do with the licensing fee, but there's a section in here that says you can get your license, but you can't be in that site for more than 21 days at one location. 21 days consecutive, 21 days over a calendar year. Does that mean that you couldn't be there for Friday and Saturday for more than 10 weeks, 10 weekends?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Griscoviac, it's 21 days per calendar year per the statute.
And that is for the full license, the full year, even if they paid the 300 and got the full license?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Griscoviac, the full year would allow them to operate within the city. They just can't be in the same location more than the 21 days. So right now with the transient merchant setup that we're using, they have to pay by location. This would be one fee for the year, $300. They can operate wherever as long as they register with us. Just not 21 days, more than 21 days at any one spot.
Therein being the reason they're mobile.
Right.
Councilmember Dimmer?
And we define location as having to move at least a block. Other side of the street.
As long as it's not in the same location.
So I mean,
Okay.
but literally they can't move 1 inch because they're gonna park a different, I mean, there must
That would
be
not be.
some minimum amount that we consider the same location, right? Okay.
Property.
Oh,
Same
okay,
property.
so it's same, okay. But you could move one property ahead and call that a different location? It seems to take the teeth out of the rule.
I don't know if Alloy's gonna want their food truck on the property next door.
But if they can get 21 more days, they'll do it.
Or a different food truck, and they can
Yeah.
rotate them through, which I
Right.
think they like
We're
the variety,
rotating now.
the variety as well.
Councilmember Wells?
Talking to some of these food truck vendors, I'm certainly not an expert, but they actually want to move. It's to their advantage. They don't want to sit in one spot. It's better for business if they get new customers all the time. Even some of these large events, they don't want to go to them 5 years in a row. They just want to keep recycling and getting new customers.
All right.
And then one more thing, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Councilmember
And that's,
Griscoviac.
I believe it's written in here that the background check clause is removed for food trucks, mobile food trucks. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And that's because their background through
Licensed.
the county?
Through the county.
Okay. All right. I think this is a good step forward. I think that we're gonna have to look at it for the first 6 months or a year, see how it works out, and know that we might be back looking at this next year, tweaking it, going, oh my gosh, that's, I'm hearing from this restaurant that this food truck is 150 feet away and, or whatever. So. Okay, and this is just an introduction, right?
One more.
Okay.
I really liked your point about the Brooklyn Park having a nice map or a flyer or something like that. I'm not saying we'd have to change the ordinance, because if you put the map in the ordinance, then every time a new restaurant opens, you might have to change it. But I do really like the idea of having a ordinance-based flyer that you can hand to people like we did with, say, the chickens. You know, I think that's a nice bridge between keeping the ordinance with one rule and then having something else you can update or put on the webpage or whatever.
All right. So if there's no other questions or discussion, we will consider the introduction. We'll consider this ordinance to amend Chapter 5-1500 to add mobile food units, food trucks, introduced. And then, let's see, I would just like to ask a question before they take off. June 22nd and 23rd, Alloy is doing their first year anniversary. Will there be food trucks there? Yes, food trucks? Okay.
With cookies?
Oh, and different trucks over the course of 2 days. All right. Very good. All right. We are on item 13, no,
Mr. Mayor?
11.
So this comes back to us on the 19th for vote, correct?
Yes, it will.
Just to make sure that everybody knows that it's one more step.
Okay. And then item 11 is it's a related introduction of an ordinance establishing license fees for mobile food units. We're looking at a per day license of $15, a per week license of $40, a per year, which is 21 days or fewer license for $100, or per year more than 21 days license, which coincides with the full food trailer license through Anoka County. That's $300. Does anybody have any questions on this? Okay, then we will consider the ordinance establishing license fees for mobile food units introduced. And that will also come back on the 19th, is that what it is, June 19th? All right, item 12 has been eliminated from the agenda. Item 13 is to planning case 18-6, consider introduction of an ordinance modifying requirements for attaching accessory structures to adjacent other structures. Current code requires that an accessory structure larger than 120 square feet of floor area, so located such that any of its walls is within 5 feet of a wall of any other structure, must be attached to and made structurally part of the other structure. At the time this was implemented, it was consistent with building code. Since then, the building code has been updated, and the requirement of combining accessory structures with adjacent structures is no longer in effect. The prior building code did not include standards for openings, doors, and windows in a residential setting. The technology has advanced, and the new code now has residential standards for openings. Therefore, the proximity requirement is no longer necessary. In our effort to bring consistency between the building code and accessory structure requirements when possible, staff is proposing to eliminate the requirement of attaching an accessory structure to other structures in close proximity. And then there is also a housekeeping change to section 11-1207.2 sub 6 sub F. This clause calls for concrete slabs for accessory structures 120 square feet or larger. This will be changed to apply to accessory structures larger than 200 square feet. And this is also an introduction. Was there anything else in there you needed covered, Mr. Harlicker, Mr. Filius?
Mayor, you did a fine job.
Well, you wrote it. All right, does anybody have any questions? Councilmember Demmer?
I just want to say kudos for going through and sweeping these and making sure that they make sense with new building code. I know that it's a lot of work to go through and do that, but it is better that we have code that's easier to match the building code, so thank you.
All right. If we don't have any other questions, then we will consider planning case 18-6, an ordinance modifying the requirement for attaching accessory structures to adjacent other structures, introduced. 14. Item 14 this evening is to consider resolution 18-71, providing preliminary approval for Galway Place / Community Plaza bonds. Somebody want to give us the 10,000-foot view on this? I have a question too. Ms. Legg?
And then Andy Hughes with Common Bond Communities is also here, and he can talk about the details of the project. So basically what the city's proposing, and it's very preliminary, but again, this is just preliminary approval of authorizing housing and revenue bonds for Common Bond to renovate Galway Place using tax-exempt financing. It's no obligation of the city, but the city is the the one that will actually authorize the bonds. This would be in conjunction with a project that they're also doing in St. Paul. We would be the issuer of the bonds, but we would really have no impact on that project. We've done this before, where we've kind of joined with another city. It's kind of an economy of scale for them. It's a little bit less expensive for bond issuance fees to kind of do a joint project like that. But he can talk about the details of the project if you would like, you know, what the plan is for the renovation at our site.
Okay, a little highlight on that would be good. And then I'm curious how much of the $11 million is for the Coon Rapids project and how much is for St. Paul? Hi there.
Good evening. I'm Andy Hughes, the Director of Acquisition and Development for Kanban. To answer that question, 11 million in total, about 6 million to go to the St. Paul project, about 5 million to the Galway project. The St. Paul project is 40 units, Galway is about 36, and so that one's somewhat larger. And other questions you might have, you want me to go over scope of work for the project, or?
The scope of the Galway project would be interesting, yes.
Yep, so it's a $2.5 million renovation, so we're talking about doing all new exteriors, so windows, roofs, siding, things like that, parking lot, garage doors, so a lot of enhancements to the site, which really hasn't seen a comprehensive renovation since it was originally built in 1981, and then for the units as well. So we'll be doing new kitchens, bathrooms, paint, carpet, things like that to really bring it up to present and really have the residents have some pride in their units as well. So new kitchen cabinets, appliances, new toilets, new bath surrounds, things like that as well. So really comprehensive renovation. We've done many similar projects like this. Most recently one in Apple Valley, historically one in Edina as well, and then a larger one in Minneapolis. We've got a great team of contractors and architects that are really resident focused as well, so it'll be minimally disruptive to them given the amount of work that's going to happen in the project.
Okay. Any questions?
Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
It's my understanding that the city really doesn't have any financial obligation on this. They don't really back the bonds, but they're considered municipal bonds. Is that correct?
Sharon, did you want to perhaps answer that?
Yeah.
Basically, yes, that's correct. They're City of Coon Rapids housing revenue bonds, but we have no obligation to repay them.
Okay, just to clarify, thank you.
And there's a maximum amount of those that we can have out, correct? Because it seems like we kind of hit the cap and had to go to Champlin for funding for the Epiphany senior housing.
You know what you might be thinking of? I'm thinking there is a cap that we use for our bonds. But these are housing revenue bonds, so they don't impact that $10 million gap. And I can't remember the details of that Epiphany one exactly, if that was if they were housing revenue bonds or if it was a different bond. But we were up against our $10 million, and we will be again this year. But because these don't impact that, it doesn't matter. There are certain kinds of revenue bonds or bonds that we'd issue for industries or, not housing revenue bonds that would impact that cap. So we just have to be a little careful when we're looking at that.
Okay. And then do we have any, I have no reason to believe that we're not going to get our 5 million or whatever it is, but I'm just, do we have any assurances that Galway won't be skimped if they run into funding issues that the St. Paul project or it's just a question. I guess it shouldn't matter, but.
Mayor and Council, I don't know how to answer that, except that they do have to provide a project scope at the beginning. How we monitor it at the end, that's not something that the city would do. So how that would work, I'm not totally clear, but I know that they do have to provide those details in the bond perspective and when they're issuing the bonds on the front end. So.
Okay.
And just to add, this project will have additional financiers as well, including public agencies, Minnesota Housing, and the Anoka County HRA, which as well will be doing plan and cost review. So they'll be keeping up on it ongoing is what I would say.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Johnson.
Just a couple of questions. Do we know, has St. Paul already passed on this issue?
I do not believe they have. Grant, you talked to
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Johnson, I don't believe they have yet. I think they're considering it shortly.
Okay, so we would be first in time if we voted for it today. Okay, and then second of all, are you at the stage where you all have selected bond counsel yet?
Yes, the city has selected bond counsel. It's Kennedy and Raven, I believe.
Okay, very good, thank you.
The developer uses our bond counsel, but they reimburse us the fee.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
So does that mean you can participate tonight or not?
I believe I can, I haven't heard otherwise. My brother is one of the bond lawyers in town, so if he were getting some work out of this deal, I'd abstain. There you go.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler.
It's no risk to the city, and it has an opportunity for benefiting and improving our properties, and which is a fabulous thing. So in the case, so I would like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 18-71 relating to a multifamily rental housing facility and the issuance of conduit housing revenue bonds under Minnesota statutes, Chapter 462C, as amended, granting preliminary approval thereto, calling for a public hearing, establishing compliance with certain reimbursement regulations under the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, as amended, and taking certain other actions with respect thereto, Galway Place Townhomes Community Plaza projects.
Second. I would have just read the first line.
Yeah, I know, I kind of
And made me do it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Councilmember, motion by Geisler, second by Kicker. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion
Thank you.
is confirmed. Thank you, sir. Item 15 this evening is to consider sub-grantee agreement Riverdale Station Apartments. I thought Mr. Brown was getting up to go do a presentation. I thought, this one looks pretty easy. So I'm just going to read your notes here, Mr. Brown. In March 2018, Sherman Associates acquired approximately 8 acres of a 16-acre vacant site next to the Riverdale Transit Station along Northdale Boulevard from the Anoka County Regional Railroad Authority. Sherman proposes a 251-unit mixed-income apartment project and a small commercial building on the site. Closing on the financing for this project is expected by late June, and construction will begin this summer. The project will utilize multiple sources of funding, including a $985,000 Livable Communities Transit-Oriented Development Grant from the Metropolitan Council. The city was awarded this grant in 2016 and will provide it to the developer to assist with certain site improvements. The council is asked to approve the sub-grantee agreement to formalize this arrangement. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Brown or anyone? Councilmember Griscoviac?
Maybe Ms. Lake could answer this. Have we already taken receipt of the grant funds?
Mayor and council, you know, we haven't, so that'll come later in this process, so it'll kind of be an in and an out.
Okay.
Yeah, and I might just quickly add to that. The structure of this is that it's kind of awarded on a reimbursement basis. So it'll be a little while before we receive the grant and then can turn it over to the developer.
And then just a follow-up question kind of related to that. It says in the agreement under the disbursement section, developers shall request payment only for grant-eligible costs. What's an example of a non-eligible cost? Can you explain?
Basically, and this is this is all established in that grant agreement that you approved back in 2016 when we were first awarded the grant. Basically, the $985,000 is intended to cover certain site improvements that are geared toward placemaking. So open spaces, bike racks, walkways, things like that. So those are the only really eligible expenses. It can't be used for the building or for parking or anything else.
Hence the livable communities aspect of it. Okay, thank you. That helps.
Wow, $1 million worth of placemaking stuff. That's going to be nice. Imagine what we could do with that, Mr. Hammer. You know. All right. So,
Your Honor?
Councilmember Demmer.
Move to approve the sub-grantee agreement with Sherman Associates Riverdale Station Apartments.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Griscoviac. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. All right, item 16, consider resolution number 17-19 sub 8, accepting plans and specifications for sidewalk expansion and authorizing solicitation of bids. Mr. Hammer, I don't see Mr. Hanson here this evening, so I don't think we're going to get a presentation. Do you want me to just read his talking points here, or do you want to cover it?
That would be great, Mr. Mayor.
All right. To provide better connectivity for residents and pedestrians, the City Engineering Division has completed plans and specifications for sidewalk expansions along Coon Rapids Boulevard and portions of Dogwood Street and 115th Avenue adjacent to Northdale Middle School. So the proposed improvements include grading, installation of a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk, and turf restoration. Staff is currently working with property owners to obtain permanent easements necessary to complete the project. Finalized easement agreements will be presented to council at the time of contract award. If approved, the advertisement will be published on June 8th and 15th, with a bid opening to be scheduled for June 27th. Bid results and a recommendation for contract award would be presented to council on July 3rd. Once the contract has been awarded, the work will be scheduled to take place from mid-July to August 31st. So this will kind of fill in all those little gaps along Coon Rapids Boulevard there.
Generally speaking, it's the north side
Some of
of
them.
Coon Rapids Boulevard, west of Hanson to the city limits. There's also a couple of small segments near the middle school off of University and 115th tying into the trail on University. And then, as council may recall, a small segment over near Springbrook in the southeast part of town due to that pedestrian bridge concern that's down there.
All right, excellent. What are your wishes, council? Councilmember Demmer?
So, question on sort of the south and eastern side of Hanson gaps. I know that some of those might get fixed up with the Riverwalk project, but is that in the plans for the future? Any reason those didn't get selected this time? Just wondering.
Councilmember Demmer, members of the council, we looked at this the same way we did the trail improvements here several years ago. We're limited by the funding in the budget, so this is able to be supported. The next phase would be looking at east of Coon Rapids Boulevard, or east of Hanson on Coon Rapids Boulevard, and then also up in the Riverdale area would be the next priorities.
And the that bridge that's currently closed, sort of by Muddy Cow, that's a different issue altogether. That's not. This one little box down here was kind of hard to tell exactly what it was.
That's correct. The intent is to build the sidewalk on the south side from the Quick Trip up to 93rd Avenue where there's a signal where you could safely cross. So we add a pedestrian way on the south side of the road to address the pedestrian bridge. We'll be coming to you. We're working with Anoka County now on solutions for that pedestrian bridge and hope that we can get to that this fall, but this sidewalk is to just close that down, get people on a sidewalk at least on one side of the boulevard.
Okay. Anyone else is going? Okay. Move resolution number 17-19 sub A, accepting plans and specifications for sidewalk expansion and authorizing solicitation of bids.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Geisler. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And we are on to item 17, authorizing purchase of police in-car camera system. Now, it says that this request is coming from the finance director, but it seems like she wouldn't be actually using these. Chief Wise, anything, any update on these?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it's a math problem, as you might imagine, so Ms. Legg has been involved. The existing, all right, so each of our marked squad cars in Coon Rapids have an in-car video system. That system was called ICOP, and we purchased it and implemented it in 2009. Sometime since 2009, that company was acquired by a company called Safety Vision. Our existing hardware and software is considered a legacy system of Safety Vision, meaning they don't make replacement parts, nor do they support the software other than they try to help us keep it working. While the system is starting to fail, we're losing some features. If you want some detail, I'll give you some details, such as there's a feature called pre-event, meaning when the squad car's red lights are turned on, the camera turns on, and it has a look back, a 30-second look back, which is important because once the red lights come on, the officer's already observed something. That pre-event feature is not working 100% of the time, and that can't be like that. So, and this system, the software operates on Windows 7 and cannot operate on Windows 10. And I see smiles up there because I know many of you know that Windows 7, I don't even know if it still is supported by Microsoft at all now. So, needless to say, it's needing to be replaced. And honestly, we tried to put it off as long as we could to keep the system going. So the proposal is to use a company called WatchGuard, which is a widely used in-squad video system that's sold to a lot of agencies in Minnesota, including the Minnesota State Patrol. At this point, we're just talking about the squad, or the cameras in the squad cars, and also to include some cameras for our interview rooms that are at the police department. I know the conversation will come up regarding body cams. This system is expandable to include body cams, inexpensively to expand to include body cams. But truthfully, we want to spend some time experimenting with the system and figuring out how much staff time it takes to manage the videos, because our police department, we respond to roughly 45,000 calls for service. Add another 15,000 traffic stops, you're talking 60,000 incidents a year. Body cameras sort of multiply that, and then of course we have the city attorney that needs those videos. So we really need to figure out whether or not we need additional staff to be able to manage the videos or not. We're hopeful that the system gains some efficiency over the system that we have and that we won't have to add staff, but we're not really certain. So at this point, we're just talking about replacing the in-squad cameras and that in the department, and that, and then we'll come back to you to have a more robust conversation about body cameras.
Excellent. All right.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Johnson?
So I move adoption of resolution 18-73 authorizing the purchase of a police in-car camera system, including a budget amendment in the amount of $245,000.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Wells. Mr. Stemwedel, is the building facilities funds the best place for this one to come from? I was just kind of a surprising, it seemed like a non-connected,
Mayor and council, yes, you know, one of the couple reasons. One reason is we do pay for things in this fund outside of just pure facilities construction.
Sure.
Maybe that title's a little bit of a misnomer, but it was the one that was adopted long ago, and it's sort of the tried and true term. But certainly we've had other examples where we've bought equipment of this type from that. Also, it's one of our more flexible funding sources in this case. This wasn't an anticipated cost for 2018. That fund ebbs and flows a little bit depending on how much it's swept over from years prior. So there were some unallocated dollars associated with that fund that could be used for this purpose. So it was, in that regard, the easiest place to find this money.
all right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Kraskowiak?
Even though this wasn't budgeted in 2018, we talked about it, we got a glimpse of this ahead of time. It sounds like an emergency situation, so it's inevitable, and I think absolutely we need to move forward with it.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right, it was close, but it passed. All right, and now we are on open mic public comment part 2. Anybody here to address council for open mic this evening? All right. We have one report from a previous open mic, and that was, this memo was, okay, so a memo was prepared and sent to Jackie Fable and Melissa Bright, who spoke at open mic on May 15th on behalf of the Coon Rapids United Soccer Club, requesting support in updating soccer complex facilities. City staff is aware of the facility concerns at the Coon Rapids Soccer Complex. Members of the soccer club also attended the May 14th, 2018 Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, where they noted the size constraints of the concession stand and restrooms at the complex. Issues pertaining to the functionality of the restrooms were part of the original Parks Bond program discussions in 2013, but did not make the final plan. Historically, these type of projects have been done in partnership with the local athletic associations. Original concessions buildings at Sand Creek, Aspen, and the soccer complex were all constructed by associations and donated to the city. The latest formal request included a statement that the association is willing to contribute to the project, but was unsure of what that would entail at this time. The Coon Rapids United Soccer Club is an affiliated association of the city of Coon Rapids and recognized as the soccer provider in the community. The city values the volunteer service the association provides in the community and understands the added value that quality facilities bring to our athletic complexes in terms of customer experience and fundraising potential. Staff will continue to work with the association, the City Council, and the Park and Recreation Commission through the budget process to develop a future plan for this facility. So this memo is just a response. That's all I've got. We are at other business.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler.
so we start summer in the city next week.
We do.
And with that, we will be at the new Boulevard Park, and we will have the grand opening of the splash pad, which will be very exciting, and hopefully it'll be nice and hot, and the only wetness will be from the splash pad and not Mother Nature. So,
I don't think I know where you're talking about. You mean Boulevard Plaza?
oh, Boulevard Plaza, yes, that has the park area.
If only we had a nice sign of it.
If only we had a sign to tell us it was Boulevard Plaza. Yes.
Yep, okay.
June 12th,
June
6:30.
12th. Summer, yes.
And we are
6:30.
debuting our new show trailer that night, aren't we? Yes. No, we're
No.
not?
No,
What happened, Mr. Hammer?
because it's at the plaza, if it would have been at the park.
Do we have to move it back to the park to be able to use the trailer?
Mayor,
Mr.
no,
Stemwedel?
We met on site today to do some additional planning around the grand opening and discuss the show trailer. There's a lot of turf restoration that's going on at the site, grass that's just starting to be grown, and so our parks director was very concerned about parking the trailer anywhere sort of in immediate proximity to the splash pad due to that. And so we're just trying to figure out a different way to maybe exhibit that, or we'll find other uses for it throughout the summer.
Call Walgreens and see if they'll let you park it on their lot.
A little too far
Right
away.
next to the pad.
I just can't tell you how disappointed I am.
Yeah, right.
So, however,
yes, Councilmember
we also
Geisler.
have on Thursday, the summer concert series, the Capri Big Band is playing, right? So that's at the regional park, and that's at 7 to 8:30. So at the Coon Rapids Dam Regional Park,
Is that this Thursday? Is that what you're saying?
this Thursday, June 7th.
Okay.
And then the other thing on our list is next week, Thursday, the 14th, at Crooked Lake Library, Squad Car Story Time at 10:15 in the morning. I have never been to Squad Car Story Time. Can we learn more?
Neither have I. And a pier.
It involves being in the back of a squad car.
Remember when they tried to pack all those kids into the Volkswagen in college? Yeah, it's the same thing. See how many kids they get in the backseat of the squad car and read them a story. Starts
So those
by
are my big
Mirandizing them. All right, any other business to come before council? Mr. Stemwedel, anything else that, no? Any other disappointments you want to drop on us tonight? No?
Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
Not near as fun as splash pads or anything like that, but I attended a Met Council Environmental Services budget open house. They had a couple of them. I attended the one that was in Minnetonka, and just a couple of facts I think we probably need to think about, even in the budget and going forward. So the Met Council Environmental Services is proposing a 3% increase in our wastewater costs in 2019. Ms. Leggs probably knows about that. 6.1% increase overall, but I think the bigger thing here is they're forecasting a 4% increase in these fees for the next 10 years. So 4%.
Annually?
4%, yes. So,
Well, of course, that would be the Met Council where there's no elected representation.
that would be the Met Council with no elected representation. Our appointed representative was not at that meeting, but anyway, just thought I'd share that with the council.
All right. Any other business? Councilmember Demmer?
So, it's the last week of school, so just congratulations to all the high school graduates from Coon Rapids, and congratulations to all the teachers for getting through another year. Thanks for your service.
We used to recognize the Coon Rapids Scholarship Association annually, and I don't recall what the number was, but it was a tremendous amount of scholarship money they gave out. What a wonderful organization and a great boost to our Coon Rapids High School kids.
Your Honor, and speaking of that, I happened to attend that, and it was a really nice honor to Bruce Frank. They spoke about Bruce Frank, who was initially involved in that organization there for years and years and years, and of course emceed the event every year. And then they had a video too, so it was very well done. And I think this year they gave out over $200,000 in scholarships to 165 students, if my memory is correct.
Yeah, it was always a treat to listen to Bruce, because, all of these people that, there's a lot of legacy gifts that are given, and most people don't know who they are anymore, but he knew them all. I mean, he could tell you who they were, something about every person. It was really, it's a big loss for that, for sure.
He had a sports antidote for anybody that played sports for Coon Rapids High School. Yeah. All right, anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Demmer to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.